As the biggest gaming franchise of all time, it's unsurprising that Mario has sparked several offshoots, be it kart racing, golfing or board games. The majority have been good, often definitive of their respective consoles' libraries, while others have been so shockingly egregious that they've spawned a sea of memes. Looking at you, Hotel Mario. Few, however, have been as truly divisive as the Paper Mario series, the first of which was originally released on the Nintendo 64 in Japan in 2000 and in other territories the following year. It combined Mario's block bonking, mushroom munching, turtle hopping tropes with the turn-based battle and level up systems of the role-playing genre, a setup that required more cognitive investment than jumping on enemies' heads. This reimagining of the Mushroom Kingdom earned it widespread acclaim, while its GameCube sequel, The Thousand Year Door, would build on its success and cement them both as classics in the heart of fans across the world. But this critical consensus would not remain positive. A shift in creative direction at the beginning of the following decade would significantly change the Paper Mario series, and few would argue for the better. The third installment, Super Paper Mario, released on the Wii in 2007, focused more heavily on puzzle platforming, but still garnered a level of fandom. 2012's Sticker Star and 2016's Colour Splash, however, would largely strip away the evocative characters and engaging combat, the elements that made the original title so beloved. These days, the announcement of a new entry is met with trepidation bordering on despair, while subsequent critique is usually mixed, to say the least. But that's an ongoing overdone conversation. In this video, I want to focus more on what made the original game so special, rather than lament its modern incarnations. Paper Mario wasn't, in fact, the plumber's first role-playing adventure. The SNES had been home to Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars, a collaboration between Nintendo and legendary RPG mongers Square that placed Mario and friends into a Final Fantasy-esque world. This turned out to be a match made in heaven. While only released in Japan and North America, the game was well received, earning critical acclaim and eventual cult appeal. Fans' appetites had been whetted, and when the Nintendo 64 launched a short time afterwards, a sequel seemed inevitable. However, there was a twist in the plot. Another Square project also loomed large on the horizon in the form of Final Fantasy VII, the most ambitious of that series, and a game that would far exceed the technical capabilities of Nintendo's new hardware. This led to the third party shifting development to Sony's recent PlayStation console and breaking ties with Nintendo, a rift that wouldn't be healed for several years. The production of Super Mario RPG 2, therefore, was delegated to Intelligent Systems. This independent company had been formed when founder Toru Narihiro had been hired to carry out programming work in the NES era, but had, over time, morphed into something of a subunit of Nintendo, working on titles as notable as Super Metroid, Fire Emblem and Mario Paint. Losing the isometric layout of Super Mario RPG in favour of a pop-up book aesthetic, the company crafted Paper Mario, this time to be enjoyed by a global audience. The story and world that Intelligent Systems presented were very familiar, but somehow overwhelmingly new. Mario and Luigi are invited to a party at Princess Peach's castle. Upon their arrival, things quickly go awry though, when the wicked Bowser's castle inexplicably rises from the ground underneath Peach's royal abode, lifting it into the heavens. It turns out the reptilian fiend has stolen the Star Rod from the Star Spirits, granting him invincibility and the power to make wishes a reality. Mario is sent flapping back to Earth while the damsel is once again left in distress, and it's up to the paper-thin plumber to save the day by travelling to many regions and freeing the displaced Star Spirits. These locales were fairly typical, but they were framed in ways far beyond the linear courses of the Super Mario Bros. Series, often requiring Mario to revisit the same places once equipped for further exploration and interaction with the environment. This is subtly taught to the player in the first area, Goomba Village. As soon as you clear a path by breaking a yellow block with your newly acquired hammer, sitting nearby is a similar looking block, but one made of stone that your current tool can't handle. You'll therefore need to come back here later to uncover all of the village's secrets. Early on, you're quickly taught that this isn't a mere platforming level, but part of a cohesive map that will change over time. For a game made of paper, it was perhaps the first time the Mario world had felt truly three-dimensional. And that world would soon take you to the likes of Dry Desert. During my last replay, I even had to consult a guide for this section written by my much younger self, which amazingly still lingers online. There's a palpable harshness that comes with traversing the unforgiven, mysterious dunes. Gangs of taxing enemies, a dearth of healing points, and a number of secrets dotting a largely barren landscape make it tough going for an early area. It's just one of many cleverly designed set pieces. The Foreboding Boo's mansion is another highlight, home to a number of ghostly puzzles that need to be solved in order to reach its topmost haunt. It's hardly Resident Evil's Spencer Mansion, but it's a satisfying clockwork gauntlet of tasks nonetheless. You'll then have to stealthily storm a giant's castle and experience an intense chase sequence, enter a TARDIS-like toy box to bring an end to the Shy Guy's reign of mischief, take part in an archaeological expedition to a volcanic island, bring back the sun to an Arcadian realm of sentient flowers, and venture to a frozen mountain city where you'll become embroiled in a penguin murder mystery. Coupled with the storybook imagery, these imaginative scenarios imbue an epic quest with the nostalgic charm of a child's fairy tale and remain a delight to revisit even now. The most endearing and enduring aspect, however, is not simply the world that it builds, but the characters who inhabit it. Mario games had long since been packed with memorable, often iconic enemies. In the previous platformers, they had been little more than voiceless obstacles in his journey from left to right. Here, they were reappropriated as denizens of a living, breathing land, where they'd form mixed communities with their own moralities and opinions. A partygoer at the opening shindig remarks that he's never seen so many guests from different parts of the world in one place, and bets you could hear some interesting stories. Sure enough, there are a few races in attendance, including a penguin, a Koopa, and a little mouser. The latter two had typically been bad guys in the past, but here they are mingling and eating canapes with the townsfolk. This primes you to expect the unexpected. It's a little preview of the places you'll go and the people you'll meet in this wide world. On the subject of erstwhile enemies, a toad in the opening chapter says a Goomba family rescued the unconscious Mario and are the nicest people you could hope to meet, a suggestion at which Mario's mouth seemingly falls open in surprise. Stepping outside, one of the first Goombas you see exclaims that he's Mario's biggest fan. Compare this to the original Super Mario Bros., in which a silent Goomba is the first enemy you'll encounter, who'll promptly kill you if you don't figure out which is the jump button, and it's obvious that there's more to the inhabitants of this world than simply being monsters. Along with this Goomba, Mario would ultimately build up a party of charismatic allies to aid him in battle throughout the game, comprising an adventurous young Koopa, a feisty feminine Bob-omb, a postman Paratroopa, an aristocratic Boo, an infant Sparky, a babysitting Cheep Cheep, and a turncoat Lakitu. Sure, there would be villainous versions of these that would try to kill you, but now they'd at least articulate a reason. We'd even get a glimpse into Bowser's innermost thoughts and feelings at one point by reading his diary, in which he details how he hopes the princess likes him. The combat with which he dealt with the baddies was reminiscent of the 90s roleplayers that had come before it, with Mario and the enemy taking turns to deliver blows to wear down each other's health meters. The plumber was armed with his renowned jumping prowess and a hammer, but could find and equip badges throughout the game that would bestow further advantages upon him, such as stronger attacks or heightened defense against certain enemy types. His party, on the other hand, possessed unique powers based on their species. For instance, Sushi could flood the screen easily dispatch fiery foes, while Watt could zap defensive monsters into paralysis. An integral aspect of fighting was adapted from Super Mario RPG in the form of the action command, which involved timed inputs to bolster your abilities. 2 decades later, rattling the A button and rapidly pushing the control stick is harder on my aging joints, but the way it turned each round into a pseudo minigame instead of just a list of options was an engrossing and influential part of Paper Mario. It wasn't just enemies who were fleshed out. Toads made up a large part of the population, but even they were redesigned into more fun guys. There were mustachioed musicians, long-haired female versions, including the brilliantly named songstress Chanterelle, and even dark-skinned desert-dwelling nomads with Tajel musts wrapped around their fungal noggins. They would react to the developing events of each chapter, while side quests that involved delivering letters revealed even more about their lives, weaving a sense of realism throughout this Mushroom Kingdom. Party member Goombario's tattle ability could reveal even more on every character, while the omnipresent Chuck Quizmo's questions kept track of how well you were taken in the world, rewarding correct answers with star pieces. Episodic segments would also put you in control of the captive Peach and her amusingly named star sidekick Twink, as they searched the Dark Castle halls in a series of regal stealth missions. They'd have to eavesdrop on soldiers, bake a cake for a morbidly obese shy guy, commit identity theft, and even partake in a game show style quiz. All of these quirky activities involved acquiring items and info to help Mario back on terra firma, and making the princess intermittently playable not only gave her more of an interesting role than a damsel in distress, but came as a welcome change of pace that punctuated the story with some dramatic flair. On top of this, there's even a comedic angle, with much of the dialogue being intercut with goofy takes and amusing perspectives. Okay, it's not exactly side-splitting, but it adopts the tongue-in-cheek tone of Super Mario RPG, often at the point of being self-deprecating. Mario will doze off during long expositional speeches, then pretend to have been listening. He'll even trip when entering a battle sometimes. It's a pointless little inclusion, yet one that helps retain an upbeat wackiness even when an intimidating villain is bearing down on you. But the most significant piece of character development was that of Luigi. During the game, you can periodically return to the Mario Brothers home for a visit. Ground pounding their bedroom floor will lead to a secret basement where you can sneak a peek at Luigi's diary, chronicling his innermost thoughts and feelings, mainly jealousy over Mario's adventure. A couple of entries even detail his fear of ghosts and how he longs to star in his own titular game, foreshadowing the release of Luigi's Mansion, which was in the works at the time as a GameCube launch title. While it's just a nifty little hidden feature with no bearing on the larger story, this was actually the first time the lankier brother had been canonically portrayed as the anxious, clumsy, but good-natured big lug we've come to know and love over the years. In previous titles, he had been little more than a palette swap of Mario. Here, he was established as a more interesting, flawed, relatable figure compared to his silent everyman brother. I'd still argue that Luigi is a more interesting character than Nintendo's main mascot, come at me. So, where did things go wrong? How did Paper Mario mutate into a barely recognisable bare-bones version of itself? The answer lies in an ideological disconnect between creator and consumer. This seemingly stems from Mario mastermind Shigeru Miyamoto's strict, questionable insistence that modern entries should not be story-driven or feature new interpretations of established characters. Development staff have therefore been limited, arguably stifled, in their creativity, having to work in the exact opposite direction from the classic formula, as the late Nintendo president Satoru Iwata opined while interviewing them around the release of Sticker Star, as though somberly diplomatic about the team's misdirection. Paper Mario was known as Mario Story in Japan, which might actually be a more fitting name at the end of the day. The paper aesthetic was largely incidental. It's the lively world and its entertaining cast that's remembered fondly, yet in later titles the focus tended to be shifted towards further arts and crafts gimmicks, like stickers, paint and folding at the expense of characterisation. Mario even has a white border nowadays, as though they can't even be bothered cutting him out properly. It's no secret that Miyamoto isn't the biggest advocate of storytelling in gaming. Director Yoshiaki Koizumi has had to sneak narrative elements into other Mario and Zelda games. But when that inexplicable philosophy extends to an RPG like Paper Mario, it feels like the devs are doing the series a disservice. Still, the original Paper Mario hasn't lost its lustre after 2 decades and stands as a classic in the Nintendo 64's canon. Its legacy lives on elsewhere too. Bug Fables: The Everlasting Sapling is a highly regarded indie title that fiercely emulates the same colourful, papery world, proudly wearing its influence on its sleeve. Last year's The Outbound Ghost also follows suit, its rotund spectres even resembling boos. Meanwhile, the most recent Paper Mario game, The Origami King, notably earned more praise than its colour-splashed predecessor. Much of that, however, was attributed to the way in which it tangentially recreated the partner system and worldliness of old, rather than bringing new ideas to the table. While progression is usually something to be lauded, it speaks volumes that a sizable demographic of fans considers a step in the right direction for the series as one going back towards its roots. But if the ineffable joy of the first Paper Mario is to remain in the past, this desire for a true successor is, in itself, a testament to how important a chapter it was in Mario's story.